People seem surprised to find that Devon and Cornwall police might be quite incompetent. And Devon and Cornwall police were last known for making an arrest of, oh yes, me, for calling myself a spaz online at my pub night, which they said was grossly offensive to myself.
We do have to talk about the Devon and Cornwall police, who, in my view, not only botched, but covered up much to do with the initial investigation around what I now know to be a politically motivated assassination of my friend Anne Widdecombe. And the Devon and Cornwall police force have form. With Katie Hopkins posting on X, people seem surprised the Devon and Cornwall police are a bit shit. They were last seen arresting me for calling myself a spaz and had 3 chief constables at the same time as 50% were bent. She then reported this on her batshit bonkers Britain news bulletin.
People seem surprised to find that Devon and Cornwall police might be quite incompetent. That's despite the fact that Devon and Cornwall police for the longest time had 3 chief constables at a cost of about £70,000 a month to Devon and Cornwall taxpayers, because at any one time one of the chief constables was doing something that they shouldn't have been doing or bumming a colleague. And Devon and Cornwall police were last known for making an arrest of, oh yes, me, for calling myself a spaz online at my pub night, which they said was grossly offensive to myself.
Now remember, this was no joke at the time. Katie Hopkins was interviewed. Look.
So I'm back here at Devon and Cornwall Police Headquarters. In May 2025, I was threatened with arrest if I didn't turn up to be interviewed under caution, and my alleged crime was hurty words on my own pub night, the Katie's Arms, about myself because I called myself a spaz. So I had to come here and be interviewed under caution for over an hour by 2 members of CID representing Devon and Cornwall and Dorset, like Dorset doesn't have its own problems without dealing with me. For 7 months I have been interviewed, told charges were pending, awaiting charges to finally find out there's no charges to face. I would like to state 3 things. Number 1, my grateful thanks to the Free Speech Union for their support and commitment to my free speech and that of others. Most legal types won't touch me in case they catch cancel culture off me, but the Free Speech Union were there every step of the way and continue to be. The second point is that the process is the punishment.
Well, it is, but what Katie Hopkins did so brilliantly was immediately make Devon and Cornwall look like absolute fools, because she repeated the statement following their months-long investigation and they didn't rearrest her. Watch.
I am a spaz. I will continue to state that boldly so that others who are going through their own issues know that they can fit in. I say all the best of us are weird, and I think it's my job to create chaos so that more people out there who don't necessarily fit into the regular mould can feel like they belong. I will end with this. Please consider supporting the Free Speech Union. Maybe not for me. It's not for me. I have my voice and I have a platform. But consider supporting for the hundreds of others that they're out there for, defending their free speech and who are benefiting from their help. Thank you very much indeed, and no thanks at all to Devon and Cornwall Police. I would urge you to focus on real criminals committing real crimes and delivering better value for people paying their council tax.
And that was, of course, prescient, because what happened within their constituency, Anne Widdecombe was assassinated. And Mike Graham, Anne's colleague, revealed that they immediately arrested the wrong guy. He was a delivery driver, and then spent the weekend attempting to cover up what happened. Most extraordinarily, though, the crime commissioner for Devon and Cornwall, Alison Hernandez, gave a press conference yesterday where she claimed she was confident, despite the absolute F-ups, that the police had provided a professional response all along.
There's been quite a bit of commentary about the way that Devon and Cornwall Police have communicated during the early stages of this case. But as the Home Secretary said yesterday, it is not unusual that in a fast-paced investigation, more information comes to light and changes the nature or the character of what the police are dealing with. Since beginning the investigation, I've been briefed by the Chief Constable regularly, and I'm confident that Devon and Cornwall Police has provided a substantial and professional response to Anne Widdecombe's death.
Now, as a slight side note there, Reform UK's Isabella Oakeshott was not happy with Hernandez's outfit for that important statement.
And by the way, when they nabbed this suspect, who hasn't been charged yet, let's get that straight, they very swiftly found what looks like very incriminating political material in his house. So, you know, again, what is she talking about? Why did they shoot their mouth off when they made statements they didn't have to make? And I think we should be told why.
I agree, and I think that when your police force is under fire for lack of professionalism, you could at least wear a professional outfit. I can't get over that shirt. That is not a business attire for the circumstances. I don't think that was appropriate either. It just doesn't give off the right vibes to me.
And what is clear is that the UK government now intends to use the assassination of Anne, despite the incompetence of the police, to shut down free speech. That's always what they go to, isn't it? Doesn't matter if you're talking about the assassination of David Amis or Joe Cox, doesn't matter what the circumstances are, free speech and censorship is always the answer. An end to free speech and an increase in censorship. Chris Rose of Reform UK posted, I noticed yesterday that the Anne Widdecombe parliamentary debate stared into being about online safety, particularly by Lucy Powell. Just like with David Amis, they're using Anne's murder to push an insidious agenda. They're doing exactly what they accused Reform of doing. And Powell, who is a serious ally of the next Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, didn't even hide it. Writing, earlier today, I paid tribute to Anne Widdecombe, called for more civility in political debate and for further action to tackle hate propagated online. Watch. If you want more of this every day, yes, the stories they try to cancel, hit that subscribe button now and turn on the notifications. Dan Wotton, Outspoken, no spin, no bias, no censorship.
Does she agree with me that we do need to tackle some of the online algorithms and business models which heighten this kind of polarisation and hate towards those in public life, and we must do more to tackle this with urgency?
I thank the Honourable Lady for her contribution and her questions. Let me say, I think she's right that the current climate that we are operating in within our national politics is unlike any that most of us have seen. Those of us who've been around for a while can see the big change that has occurred over the last decade or so, and we do absolutely have to do more as a government and as a society to know exactly what the boundaries are between passionate, contested, fierce debate of the kind that Anne Widdecombe herself engaged in, and then behaviour that spills into threats and harassment of the kind that is designed to drive people out of public life.
Civility. So Lucy Powell speaking about civility. Now, this is the woman who paraded about saying, I never kissed a Tory. This is the woman who described the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs as a racist dog whistle. And this is the woman who just shouts down opponents she doesn't like on television. Civility, really? Watch this.
Security. The question about how much it's going to cost. Are you talking over me again?
I'm asking you.
Are you talking over me again?
You asked me.
Are you?
Richard,
okay, can I speak?
Richard and Lucy, just
can I speak?
cool it.
Right,
well, hang on, I will come back to you.
Speaking over me.
But Lucy, answer.
I don't know whether you saw the documentary on Channel 4 about rape gangs over
this.
We
want to blow that little trumpet now, do we? Yeah.
Okay. There was a real issue.
Let's get that dog whistle out, shall we?
Okay, Lucy. Yeah. The councils, there were so many people who were so afraid for good. Can I just finish the point, just for 1 minute?
Finish that point, Tim, and then I'll bring in Helen.
Look, there were so many people in local government, in the authorities, who, for good reasons, were worried about upsetting community tensions, that those girls went undefended. Now, there were good reasons, but no one has still been brought to justice for that. So you tell me, Lucy, that this isn't a culture in local government. It's just not true.
Dear. Helen Morgan?
So do not talk to me about civility, Lucy Powell. My friend Alison Pearson, star columnist at the Daily Telegraph, felt this very strongly, posting the hate against reform has been propagated by Ed Davey, David Lammy, Nazis, Keir Starmer and every MP in the Commons who jeers and drowns out Farage when he tries to speak. The entire political and media class has blood on its hands. Lucy wasn't happy with that, was she? Posting, look at your language. In this case, baselessly aimed at me, a woman in public life who has also faced serious threats, alleging I have blood on my hands. That's very inflammatory, and you know it. But Alison wasn't backing down, writing, Lucy Powell, the horrible person who dismissed raising the mass rape and torture of white working class girls as a dog whistle, you don't get to give lectures on civility. Anne Widdecombe was a far better human than you, yet the left celebrate her murder. Lucy wasn't finished, though, quote, tweeting me and implying I have blood on my hands for paying tribute to Anne. What do you think the effect of that is? Well, Alison would answer, your party has been spewing reckless hate for reform. Starmer said reform are not fit to be in government. Lammy called them Nazis. It is despicable. A third of British people want to vote for the people Labour demonises. Anne, a woman you now praise, adored reform, and Nigel Farage. What does that tell you? And indeed, there were other major political figures calling out Lucy Powell for total rank hypocrisy, like Nick Timothy, the Shadow Justice Secretary for the Conservative Party, who wrote, you called me a racist in the Commons and refused to withdraw. You said the Islamophobia definition would not be used to silence discussion of religion. You lied. You said defining Islamophobia would not be conflated with racism, yet that's what you did. You're right. When people speak, they reveal who they really are. And Nadine Dorries of Reform UK, but a former Tory cabinet minister. Lucy, you could start with taking a long, hard look at yourself. I found you and other female Labour MPs to be utterly unpleasant, often deeply personal and unkind. I wanted to like you and to work with you, but you made it impossible. You preach respect, equality and women's rights as long as applies only to people who 100% agree with you, your politics and what you stand for. You were almost all totally intolerant to any other point of view. Thank goodness Andy Burnham is a bigger person than that, given that he's about to take office. Your male colleagues tended to be less vitriolic, although not all, obviously, but the women, it was often baffling. To the superstar panel, Father Calvin Robinson and Emma Kenny, host of Emma Kenny True Crime, also one of the country's top psychologists. And Emma, to me, there is a real psychological aspect to all of this. Because, tell me if I'm wrong, but what is it about these leftists like Lucy Powell who don't seem to understand that it is so often their behaviour which encourages this hatred, but they don't see it?
I think generally that particular mindset just doesn't understand logic, genuinely. So common sense, logic, ABC, it just doesn't seem to be something they have a connection with. They don't have the rationale and the capability to actually explore and analyse. They've decided on a particular belief system, and it doesn't matter whether you can deconstruct that belief system, such as you are showing great hypocrisy here. You have been deeply problematic as a human being yourself in politics. They have decided that this is who they are, this is what they stand for, this is what we have to believe. And when you unpick and unravel that, they don't know and have the cogency to actually be able to explore that analytically themselves. They just dig deep and say to themselves, no, I'm a good person, I'm a goodie. You know, it's an interesting thing, because I think that most human beings genuinely believe that they're doing what's right. And the problem is that through history, there are lots of people who think they were doing things that were right, when actually they were doing things that were incredibly wrong. They were the, as I say, baddies in these circumstances. And the very fact that she cannot take a step back and see that everything is recorded, all tweets, etc., are there for people to see. The fact that she can't just say, do you know what? Actually, I've got all of this wrong and it's a terrible thing to have done. And of course, I'm a hypocrite. But like I said, part of the reason for that is we're not dealing with true politicians anymore. And I keep saying that because I think psychologically, the British public are all aghast at why things have gone so dreadfully wrong. They've gone dreadfully wrong because, for example, DEI was introduced. And shall we say, maybe certain women in this situation were given positions that potentially they weren't necessarily best to be in. And people will struggle with that. They will think that I'm being cruel towards females when actually I'm an advocate for females. But what I'm telling you now is if you would lower the bar, and the bar was lowered, and Anne Widdecombe talked about that a great deal in her past, you are going to get people who are not nice, who are not actually concerned about the country and the people within the country. They'll be looking after their own egos, and they will literally try to derail and actually throw out anyone who dares to challenge their belief system or has a distinct political view from them. And it's a very sad time in the UK. And for people who are listening to this now, that is one thing that I really want to put out, that this is a very sad time for the UK. The destabilisation is here, and we have to do something desperately to reclaim it.
And Father Calvin Robinson, look, you know I'm all for very, very feisty, outspoken debate. And the last thing I want is to shut down free speech. So I'm actually not saying for a moment that these people shouldn't be able to say what they've said. But it's the fact that they don't understand that they are the ones creating the division. I mean, I look right down to Lucy Powell walking around in a Never Kissed a Tory t-shirt. I mean, to me, that is like the height of intolerance, isn't it? Or Angela Rayner referring to all Tories as scum. Now, my solution is not to say, ban them, ban their social media accounts, take it away. But it's their total lack of understanding. But first, do you remember when energy used to feel effortless? You'd get through a workout, a long day, a bad night's sleep, and still feel sharp. But as you get older, trust me, it can start to feel like your body and brain don't have the same spark they used to. Here's the interesting part. That's not in your head. It's biology. When we're younger, our bodies naturally produce and regenerate high levels of creatine. But as we move into our 40s and beyond, that production steadily declines. And that means less readily available energy for both our muscles and our brains. That's exactly why Qualia Creatine Plus was created. Here's the key thing though. You can't just take any old creatine and assume it's doing the job. It has to actually get into your cells and then be activated so your body can use it properly. That's why Qualia Creatine Plus is different. It combines two clinically studied forms of creatine with electrolytes, all chosen to support absorption and activation. It includes easy to mix micronized creatine monohydrate in a new form called OptiCreatine, plus creatine magna power, along with a precise amount of sea salt to help support uptake where it matters most. What makes this stand out is that it's not just creatine, it's the delivery system your body needs to make it work for you. We're way past the dark ages of creatine being just for gym bros. Creatine is critical for energy, metabolism, cognition, and healthy aging, not just lifting like a bodybuilder. So go to qualialife.com/Dan for 50% off. And here's a bonus. Use the code Dan for an additional 15% off your order. That's QUALIA life.com/Dan and use the code Dan. And thank you so much to Qualia for sponsoring this episode. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, I think Emma's right. They just can't understand. They don't have the logic part of their brain to see that they are hypocrites when they're saying these guys are all Nazis. And then one of them dies. They can't see the connection between calling someone a Nazi and them getting killed at the same time as they are the ones who want to take away our free speech because we don't agree with them. And we are not even being hostile or nasty as they are. It's like it all comes down to control. They want to control us by any means possible. And that means taking away our free speech. That means monitoring our WhatsApps with like the chat control that's going through in Europe. Every single aspect of this is them wanting to control us because we do not think like them. And it's absurd. All that footage you showed of Katie Hopkins, it's like, what? A woman was arrested for her own gig for calling herself a spaz. If anyone's a spaz, it's the Devon and Cornwall police. They are spaz. They're the monks. It's absolutely ridiculous to arrest someone for calling themselves a slightly derogatory name. Come on. Every single place we look around the West at the moment, they're trying to control our speech. It's absurd.
Yeah, and Emma Kenny, I wanted to ask you about the Devon and Cornwall police specifically, and Katie Hopkins' suggestion that actually one of the reasons that we should not trust their botched investigation into Anne Widdecombe, and by the way, one of the reasons I didn't trust them the moment that I knew that they were in charge of this investigation was because of the way that they mishandled what Katie Hopkins did. I mean, if you have a police force that is so infiltrated by wokery, Emma, that they wasted not just a massive amount of resource that should have gone into solving real crimes, because trust me, the Devon and Cornwall solve rate on crimes is appalling. Like, you'd think it was a safe part of the country. Oh my God, they solve a tiny fraction of crimes. They were in special measures, actually, as a police force. So this is a failed police force. But the fact that they believed that Katie Hopkins calling herself a spaz was a crime worth investigating over many months, huge resources, 3 constables, a police interview, all of that made me immediately feel like, well, they're not going to do a proper job on Anne Widdecombe, because clearly they are a politically corrupted police force. Do you agree with that, or am I being too cynical?
No, you're not being cynical at all. I mean, there's been reports out recently saying that this needs to change, that the reality of the police is that they've become some kind of political agenda, and that's the absolute opposite. They're meant to serve and protect the public. And Katie Hopkins calling herself an abbreviation of spastic, because that's where it comes from, the Spastic Society. It's now Scope. I give Scope money every single month, but when I was a kid, it was the Spastic Society. There was nothing wrong with that word. She uses it because of her own disabilities. The idea that the police actually believed that a complaint against her doing that to herself was something they should put resources into. Like she says, ultimately, Anne is completely correct. She is saying the pain is the process. That's the whole premise of it. Bear in mind, she's somebody who's on stage. Bear in mind, she works with theatres. You get yourself a criminal record, the likelihood is you might not get rebooked. They want that pain. They want that process because it threatens you and your livelihood, and that psychologically impacts you. So it's firstly disgraceful. I don't want my money spent that way. Secondly, it's dangerous because the spectrum is Katie Hopkins here, Henry Novak there. Let's put this into context. That's what we're dealing with. We're talking about Katie Hopkins here. Who knows how she would have felt in that situation? She's already been through a hell of a lot where the police are concerned. But we're actually talking of a spectrum that goes to Henry Novak. It is despicable, reprehensible, embarrassing, and creates a huge issue with the general public regarding trust. So it's not just that particular police department. It's rife across the police force. And until somebody comes in and tackles it at the core, rotten from the head down, we are going to have more of these issues. It is, like I said, hopefully a watershed moment where somebody says to themselves in the force, well, this is just embarrassing and we have to change the way this works.
I mean, when it comes to Alison Pearson, who Lucy Powell was targeting, Alison was and is, I know for a fact, deeply, deeply traumatized by the assassination of Anne Widdecombe, a woman who she loved. I wanted to share with you just a little bit of Alison's column in the Daily Telegraph today, which I feel is incredibly powerful. It's headlined, "The Left's Constant Demonisation of Reform Was a Ticking Time Bomb." When Jo Cox was murdered, a toxic political culture was blamed, but so-called progressives won't say the same about Anne Widdecombe's death. And she raises the very good example, writing, Anne's closest surviving relative, her nephew Roger Widdecombe, a vicar, and his wife Hannah were standing alongside Nigel Farage at the commemorative event at the weekend, so they were not at all uneasy about their aunt being celebrated by her devoted colleagues. I bet they found it comforting. Why should distant relatives who didn't share Anne's views be used to hurt her party? She would have hated that. Secondly, Anne's whole adult life could be described as political purposes. If, God forbid, one of the many attacks on Nigel Farage had been successful, he revealed today he gets 300 threats a month, you just know Widdy would have been leading the mourning for her party leader, saying fervent prayers while denouncing the political class which had stirred up murderous hatred against him. I could almost hear Anne in that high, hoarsely fluting voice calling out the double standard with a favourite witty word. It's appalling. She then spoke about one of their last conversations, where Alison says she told her at the Reform UK conference, I am back in the Conservative Party. She adds Anne was so looking forward to having another bash at government in her 80s, and now she's gone. cruelly snatched away because the Labour government, much of the political class, and certain sections of the media have been allowed to get away with recklessly inciting hatred against Nigel Farage and reform. This is without doubt the most poisonous, hate-filled period in UK politics since Brexit. But Father Calvin, the point I wanted to discuss with you is that we have seen the police suggesting that Anne Widdecombe's relatives would not have wanted her death to be politicised, right? And they effectively are saying, shut up. That's what they always say. Shut up, don't talk about this. Don't talk about the political ramifications of this, even though it's a politically motivated assassination. But you see in those moments, these moments here, Alison points out that Roger Widdecombe, one of the men closest to her, and there's a whole backstory to this, by the way, which I won't go into today, but Anne had helped him out massively during a very, very difficult period of his life. He's now a vicar. Father Calvin has completely turned his life around, and he's standing next to Nigel Farage with his wife. So who are the police talking about? You know, who are these family members apparently so horrified? And we see this time and time again, don't we, Father Calvin? We saw it with Southport. We saw it with, you know, the Belfast near beheading. We saw it with Henry Novak, where we're always informed that unnamed relatives or friends are concerned about a discussion taking place. And it always happens, Father Calvin, that said discussion is very bad for the authorities.
Yeah, I remember when Jo Cox was killed. I was in politics at the time, and we held a vigil for her. Obviously, she was from a completely different party with completely different politics, but she's a British politician. And so we thought it was the right thing to do, to offer prayers for her soul. And that's what the right does. The right thinks, this is not a good situation. This is a bad situation. Let's do something to improve it. Let's work together with people who are different to us. And we've always managed to do that on the right. The left cannot do that. The left can only see enemies and wants to destroy those enemies. And every single time there's an attack, especially a political attack in our country, the police and the government are straight out there. Observe the family's wishes. Don't make this political. Like, it is political, but what it shows you is they are terrified. They know that the country is on a knife edge. They know that something is coming, something's bubbling up under the surface, that the average British person is fed up of the regime, the spazzy police and the tyrannous government trying to control our free speech, trying to take away our rights, trying to lock us up for thinking things at this point, not even just saying things. And they know that we're about to say enough is enough. And so whenever they can, they use the opportunity to silence us a little bit more. And what they don't realize is they're putting the pressure on a little bit more. So when it all comes off, and it will, eventually the lid will come off, it's going to be disastrous for all of us, the left and the right, the politicians, the spazzy police, and the regular folk. It's not going to be good whatever happens from this, but it is the fault of the political class, of the elite, the establishment. It is the fault of them for continuously pushing us down, taking away our rights, taking away our free speech, telling us what we can say, what we can do, what we can think, and thinking they can control every element of our blooming lives. I just had a text message before we came on air from a priest in America who's in Britain right now. Said, I'm shopping in Waitrose. They're taking all the glass things out of my trolley because there's a football match tonight. I'm not allowed to buy any products that have glass jars. I'm like, what is wrong with us? You can't control every minutiae of a regular person's life.
I know. Well, do you know what? Speaking about the football, I was in London dashing back to get home in time to watch the quarterfinal over the weekend. And we were with my fiance's parents, and they were saying, oh, you're in central London. Of course there's going to be celebrations. But no, Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, had ensured that there was no celebration for the football. There was no big screen up, nothing in Trafalgar Square, because, of course, he will host mass gatherings of Islamists in Trafalgar Square for the biggest Muslim prayer in history. But the thought of hosting a whole load of English football fans is beyond the pale. So it is extraordinary. And by the way, have to say good luck to England.
Yes,
tonight.
Come on, England. Bring it home.
Absolutely. We desperately need that, don't we? We desperately need that. Dan Wotton Outspoken is your no-spin, no-bias, no-censorship outlet for independent news. We have no big tech back